Morning. Good morning. My name's John Kroll. I'm the CEO. Hey! Woo! I better not cheer myself. I'm the CEO of Icentia. I have the pleasure of being the moderator today in Workshop C. Thank you for coming. We've got an excellent panel, fantastic panel from right across the globe, from market-leading industry companies, and with a massive amount of experience on the question of what is data and how do we turn data into insights. So there has been a bit of a Twitter war between the moderator in Workshop D and myself about coming today to this workshop. And I know he's going to have a big cheer for his group at some point. So instead of waiting for the end, I'm going to ask you just to welcome this panel with around about 10 seconds of the loudest cheering. Think about your son has just scored or your daughter's scored in a sports game. You've just won the largest client you've ever won, or your favourite team has just done. So if we could have 10 seconds of the loudest cheering you've ever done. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Keep it going, keep it going. Great. I can see Jeremy in there already and he's not happy, so yeah, that's a great workshop. Thanks. We'll go to the roof. So we do have a fantastic panel. I'll introduce from the order that they're going to speak today. So Eve Stevens. Eve's the Vice President. It's been done, hasn't it? It's been done, right? You know. So Eve Stevens is the Vice President of Insights and Analytics at Wagner Edstrom worldwide, and she's from the West Coast of the States. We've got Philip Lynch, Evaluation Director for Kantar Media, News Intelligence. We have, just looking at the order, we've got Christina Nielsen from the Media Analysis Director at Retriever from Norway. We have Matt Painter, Head of Research at Echo Research. And we have Jenny Chapman, who's the US Managing Director of Gorkana, whose boss is next door. So it's a great group. When we looked at this, sort of looking at this workshop today, we decided that we'd do the presentations in two groups. One lot of presentations, we're actually just going to answer the questions very directly and sort of bring the client's view clearly to the answers. And then the second part, we're going to give case studies of each of the presentations so you can see what is the best insight we've provided for a client in the last 12 months. We've only got 75 minutes, so it's going to be short from each of us. We can ask questions in each presentation and then we'll bring the panel back together at the end of it. So with that, Eve. Now.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Barry and team, for the wonderful venue and for the opportunity. And I want to actually have everybody give a round of applause to this morning's workshops, which I thought were really awesome. I sat in the big data, and if the other one was as good as the big data, they definitely deserve kudos. So applause to the guys in the morning session, please. So, like John said, my name is Eve Stevens. I'm Vice President of Insight and Analytics at Wagner Edstrom Worldwide. Wagner Edstrom is an integrated communications agency, so specializing in technology, healthcare, consumer, so work across a range of clients. So the question that we were posed today was how to turn data into insights. And in fact, we got the question, what's the most critical insights you've given your clients in the past 12 months? I have worked in this industry long enough that I have long-term memory loss. So I couldn't come up with just one. I can't remember what I last worked on. But more importantly, I wanted to step back and ask, what is insight anyways? So, and this is actually an open debate, I think, for our industry, and it's something that we talk about internally at our agency all the time, and often have to clarify what people mean by insights. So, insights, I think, at its essence, inspires action by answering questions. They are generally ahas. So, if you say interesting, that's probably an insight. If you say, I didn't know that, that's probably an insight. They give you direction. They And this is kind of a controversial one, so I'm interested in your feedback on this, but they show impact. And data alone is not an insight, which kind of goes up to the controversy of, do you show impact? By showing impact, are you giving an insight? So, very interested what you guys think after we conclude and get into the Q&A. Clients, when they ask for insights, what I've seen is that often we talk about insights as something big, strategic, resolving a strategic problem. But in fact, I see a lot of clients that need tactical insights as well. So knowing that it doesn't have to be a big aha, it can be a small aha, but still be an insight, I think is important. So different types of insights: audience beliefs, desires, what they're going to do next, what they want from your organization, what your organization wants from them, market assessments, both current as well as future, the value of communications, the value of influence. Those are types of strategic insights. Where to engage audiences, what competitors are doing moment to moment, event impact or some point in time impact, who is influential. Those are also insights. So there are a lot of different things that mean critical. So basically, how are they being used? What value do you derive out of the insights? And reaching back into my memory, most commonly, when we are delivering insights, we're answering business problems of an organization. So that organizational lens, what is the company going to do with it, is usually where you're going to focus your insights on, and they can lead to resource allocation. So for example, I worked with a client, and they weren't sure if they should allocate resources to pre-briefing. Well, we did some studies, and in fact, it was the most highest return on investment when you did the pre-briefings. Prioritizing targets, this is a big one. Influencers that they are not aware of. This is something that's very commonly asked for now. And often you have to dig deeper than just are they talking about you? Do they have the right audience? Are they focused on the audience that you care about? But also, what behavior are they eliciting from your audience? So we worked with a client that thought that they had the right influencers, and we looked back about, they had a point in time event, and one of the influencers that was not on their radar actually drove the most referrals to their owned properties. And so reconsidering that influential list was their action. Optimizing communication mix. So this is another one that I think in today's day and age, especially when you think about online, offline, different geographical audiences. Knowing that your audiences are going to reflect or going to ask for a different story from you. And then also, planning for the long tail. You can correlate communications to business impact, and you should figure out how communications correlates to business impact. So for example, we were able to tell a client that calls to action are strongly correlated to product activation. And so they were able to, in every case, have something for their influencer to create a call to action through that influencer, which then in turn led to product activation. So what's the most critical insight that I've given a client? I actually have a story. So this is internal too. I had an account partner. She was an old school media communications, very, very good at her job. She knew what she was doing. She based her expertise on her experience. And she moved into another group, working for another client. We did an influencer identification for her. And she came back to us and she pointed at one of the names on the list, and she's like, this guy is a really good friend of mine. and I know he is not influential in the space. So you obviously got it wrong. And we're like, well, we went through what we did, what we showed her. She called up the influencer. She was still skeptical. So she called him up and she said, hey, John, I think his name was John. So my guys are telling me that you're really interested in the big data space and that you're actually influential in the big data space. And he said, holy cow, I cannot believe that your guys identified me. I am passionate about this, strongly interested. My audience is asking me to write about this, and I've actually just started writing, and I want to know more, and I want to be more. And she called back, and she was like, oh, okay, research wins. That was the biggest insight I've given to a client in the past 12 months, is that research is worth it. So where are insights going? I think that, and this is talking to how do you use the how data, what data you're going to use to get to insights. If you sat in the big data workshop this morning, it just shows you the possibility of where we're headed, and where we are, in fact. I think this is going there very rapidly. But I think that it'll be richer. We have a lot more data. I don't know of very few instances in the past 12 months that we haven't actually done combined, at least earned, owned for our clients. And that perspective of both perception and behavior throughout the customer decision-making process is becoming a kind of table stakes. Predictive, we obviously saw that, being able to pattern in order to get to the future and understand what they should do to make a certain impact. Emergent, that influencer example is a perfect one, but you're gonna get emergent insights. And then end to end, and down the entirety of the funnel, and correlation, and in fact, at some point, causation to sales. So with that opening of defining insights, I'm gonna turn it over to Philip.
Thank you very much, Eve. And so I just press this, I think. There we go, right. So welcome to workshop C, C standing for clever choice. Impact and insights. So impact, the what of measurement, insight, the why of measurement. Impact looks back, insight looks forward. And I can stop there. It's defined. So, where are we going? Value of insight. Okay, insights from data convergence. So I've expanded this out a bit because one thing that taxes my mind greatly at the moment is how what we've discussed over the past, say, 4 editions of the AMEC International Summit. I think this year is going to be different because we collectively are really feeling the influence of a client expectation that what we do can contribute towards a higher understanding and deeper insights by data combining. And I think this means that the distinction between PR and media relations is becoming sharper. I know they both impact the brand, but I think how they are executed and then how they are measured, there are variances beginning to appear. And when we're measuring, we're really measuring what we're doing across the earned, owned, and paid spaces. Digital is driving the divergence of PR and media relations, but it's also leading the convergence of the earned, owned, and paid. One thing we've seen at Kantar is that data is becoming more consumer-centric, and I guess a simple way of articulating that is it's becoming less about output and more about outcome. So not how many people did you reach, but tell us something about the behaviors and attitudes of those people so that we can follow it through to behavioral change and impact on perception, sales, and the bottom line. And I think the principles of measurement will evolve in line with these trends. You know, if I think back to Berlin or Lisbon, Barcelona is the best one, obviously, because we established the Barcelona principles there. I think we're probably due a new edition of our principles that actually looks forward to how what we do sits and contributes positively towards data convergence and combining to provide deeper levels of insight. I only have one simple example for you today, and it's for Unilever. It deals with the launch of the Magnum Mini. So Unilever owns a very successful ice cream brand, Magnum, and they launched a new sort of sub-product, the Mini, and the distinct benefit of the Mini was you're meant to keep it at home and enjoy it at home. Most ice creams are bought outside of the home. This was one for home consumption. And to relate this back to data combining and insights was the challenge Unilever had was they were looking to redefine the brand to a new target audience. So they needed a methodology for achieving a very clear audience segmentation, pre-launch, and then follow that through post-launch. This morning, David Rockland mentioned that you could summarize what the benefits of what we do in two ways, and that's to provide audit of impact and what PR contributes to the communications mix, but then its role in strategic planning. So what we're using here is audience segmentation, really to achieve both those things, is to help the brand owner plan engagement and then to measure the success. I would highlight the fourth point, need to show success, because when you deal with the Unilevers and P&Gs and Nestle's of this world, they are very marketing-led. They have a very clear and concise understanding of what success looks like. And so, many of the contributory measures we may take into account, like message delivery, sentiment, etc., really needs to be rolled up into something more, some, articulated point of value and contribution. So what we did was we put together a new sort of target audience profile for them. And this needed a very detailed understanding of the attitudes and behaviors of the new target audience for Magnum Mini. So we used TGI. I don't know how many of you are familiar with TGI, but it's the largest single source panel survey in the world. And we asked a lot of questions to build up this profile, because what they were looking for was a female audience who were older than the core Magnum audience, but who were more likely to treat and reward themselves at home. So if Magnum was positioned to the X Factor audience, the younger outdoor purchasers, then Magnum Mini, we define them as the Downton Abbey watchers, consumers who on a Sunday evening might switch on the TV, open the freezer, and dig out a Magnum Mini. There's a picture of Elizabeth McGovern. And what happened was we benchmarked all the output against all women, the Downton Abbey audience, and the X Factor audience. We've got original format Magnum and then Mini, the new Mini format. And really what we're looking to do is separate the noise of the core Magnum brand from Magnum Mini, but then also to segment the new target audience from the established audience for the core brand. So there's how the brand performs to all women. The Downton Abbey audience is over-indexing, but the major achievement for Magnum is its a very strong over-indexing on its reach to the X Factor audience of younger outdoor consumers. So in terms of giving just one meaningful measure to Unilever, we then applied Magnum Mini, and that was the outcome. So what we're looking at there now is something that it was more of a niche campaign, so reach to all women was down, but as you can see, there was a very, very strong over-indexing to this key target audience. So that is just one example, really, of how taking what I would say, the TGI data that is traditionally the preserve of marketing and introducing it into the PR measurement space. I am now going to hand over to Christina from Retriever, who will take you on and give you, I think, a Nordic view of the world. Thanks very much.
Hi, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here in Madrid to share experiences with you and to learn from the many competent colleagues present at this conference. My name is Christina Nilsson, and I'm the head of analysis at Retriever, the leading company providing media monitoring and media analysis services in Scandinavia, in the Nordic countries. And today I will present an example that will serve to illustrate the importance of us in helping our customers in turning large amounts of data into insights. And this example that I am going to share with you today is from work that Retriever recently did for our largest analysis customer in Norway, DNB. And DNB is Norway's largest financial company and bank. And for several years now, we have had close cooperation with the Director of Communications and his staff at DNB, so we know this customer very well. And this close customer relationship would prove to be very valuable in the case that I now will share with you. DNB has been very successful in their proactive PR work, as they generally receive large amounts of positive media coverage. But however, in March of this year, DNB was caught in a media crisis that drastically changed their situation. And the background for this crisis, you can see here. Back in 2008, DNB sold a savings product. It's similar to subprime loans. And private banking customers took up loans to finance the purchase of these products. After having been advised to do so by their financial advisors at DNB. And a lot of customers lost a lot of money as a result of the financial crisis. And one private customer went ahead and sued DNB, claiming that they had misled him. And the Norwegian Supreme Court verdict was presented in March of this year, and DNB will have to compensate this customer who sued them, as well as about 2,000 other customers who are in the same situation. And the expenses will amount to around 70 million euros for DNB. And this, of course, led to a severe reputation crisis for DNB, and there seemed to be no ending to the negative coverage that they received in the Norwegian media. And as a result of that, DNB put all other media work on hold and allocated all their PR resources to deal with the requests from the media. And as a large company, DNB is mentioned in several thousand articles each month in the Norwegian media. But due to this media crisis, the number was substantially higher than usual, and we are therefore talking about very large amounts of data. And Retriever were prepared for the Supreme Court's verdict, and we already had a plan for how we could assist DNB in case large amounts of negative coverage would occur, and how we could help them turn large amounts of data into insights. And our analysis showed that in March, the share of coverage that was considered negative was as high as 19%. That is 19%. And this is a very large increase, seeing as DNB normally receives about maybe 2% negative coverage. And our analysis of the extensive media coverage produced several valuable insights, But the fact that our clients found themselves in a very pressured situation led us to have an internal discussion in Retriever about what kind of support would be helpful for them and what kind of insights we should highlight. So we decided that we would help DNB by putting the matter in a larger perspective. Despite already having to deal with very large amounts of data, we chose to further increase the data, namely by looking at the Norwegian media in general during that period. Because we had noticed that DNB spoke about the Supreme Court's ruling as the most negative media case in all of Norwegian media. And in my opinion, this is often the case for enterprises caught up in a media storm. We have seen it before. They are at risk of losing their perspective. And with this in mind, we chose to conduct a quantitative analysis of the coverage of all the cases in the Norwegian media as a whole, and then see how large this particular DNB case really was. And we were able to prove that the Røeggen case, as it was referred to in the Norwegian media, had a considerably lower impact than what DNB anticipated. What you see here is a list of the largest media stories in the Norwegian media during the first quarter of this year. You might recognize some of these from international media as well, such as the terrorist attack on the Statoil plant in Algeria and the horse meat scandal. And as you can see, this list doesn't include all media cases, as we have to move all the way down to the 13th place to find the Røeggen case. What DNB had thought to be the case with the highest impact actually was as far down as the 13th place. And this, of course, does not change the fact that DNB received large amounts of negative coverage, but it did, however, put the case in perspective. The media and thus the Norwegian population was not as concerned with DNB as they anticipated. And this was a very valuable insight for DNB. Additionally, we conducted analysis of the social media coverage, finding out how many shares the articles had, which were not many. And we also looked at data from surveys that showed what kind of topics, media topics, people tend to care about, and it is not this type of topic in Norway. By and large, we were able to sum up and present to DNB that the case had far less impact than what they had believed. And this insight led to DNB being able to return to its regular PR work, continuing its proactive work. So with this, I will turn over to Matt Painter from Echo.
Thank you very much. That's me. Well, we're researchers, so we've got to have a formula. This is up for debate, but we think that actionable insights, so insights that actually drive action and behaviours in a company, rely on three things. Good data, obviously. Context. What's good for one company might be totally irrelevant for another. And time. Now, some of the insights are the aha moments that we talked about. Others need a bit of time to sort of just gestate. They might be insights rather than aha insights. So I've just got a couple of slides which I hope kind of illustrate this in a case study that we actually presented to the client earlier this week. Now, the client is a privately owned, regulated utility company. It's an energy company, effectively. And in this industry, as you might know, CSAT, customer satisfaction ratings, drive revenue. The more happy your customers are, the more money you get. It's as simple as that. Now, the problem here is they've got literally tens of millions of customers, but nobody knows who they are. They're a monopoly, in effect, in their area. But people don't know them. There's no brand awareness. They don't have a reputation per se. And they actually, you might have similar situations. There are lots of proposals on the table for big, expensive, grandiose, above-the-line campaigns. Let's raise brand awareness. Let's get people to know who we are and what we stand for. and also our rivals do it, so we've got to do something similar. Now, the CEO, who was a clever Aussie like John, said, hang on a second, let's test this. Can we show that if we do raise brand awareness, increase our reputation, will this actually impact customer satisfaction? It seemed obvious that it would, but we thought we'd test it. So in essence, it's, do we shout about ourselves? Do we say who we are, go out there and really kind of big our brand up? Or do we hide away? Do we keep our head under the parapet? No news is good news. We're doing okay, so why would we change it? So our job was to test that. I won't dwell too much on what we did, but we did some qualitative research. So we did workshops with customers. We did interviews with the executive team. We did scenario testing. So, what happens if everything goes right? What happens if everything goes wrong? What's the impact on your brand and your revenue there? We did quant research, so some big structured customer surveys, some key driver analysis to work out what really drives customer satisfaction. And some secondary desk research. What are your competitors doing in different parts of the world, different industries? So the insight in this case is, what really does drive customer satisfaction? And it was quite interesting what we found. The two biggest drivers of customer satisfaction, again, it might seem obvious, it wasn't obvious to the client, were ease of contact. We want to know how to get in touch with you when we need you, and until then you can go away and leave us alone. And we need to have clear, accessible communication. So if the lights go out, we need to know who you are, what you can do for us, where you are, how we reach you. We're not too bothered about what your brand is, although that's kind of embedded in this to an extent, but those are the really key drivers. And the crux of the matter was, and this wasn't popular with some of the other agencies, as you can imagine, an big above-the-line campaign had no demonstrable ROI. Why would that enhance customer satisfaction? There were other things that were more important. So we had to adapt, and I think this is always important, as you can tell me, I'm sure, that you adapt the research brief to deliver the insights as you go through. As the context changes, so do you. So, no big daily press campaign, no big TV campaign. That was the insight. And just to sort of round off, what we did instead, with the client, was to rethink their customer communications. Given that ease of contact is absolutely critical, how do we communicate with customers in ways that they value? And then how do we embed that in our value proposition? How do we make sure that what we offer customers is all about communications and being easy to contact? And our KPIs, critical. This is the time thing. How do we track progress against that going forward? And often these are the aha moments, I'm sure, the things to do tomorrow. These are the direct links to customer satisfaction and revenue. Things like using social media and texting more, the customers told us they valued. This is a power meter in your home. So, everybody's got one of those. How do we give people communications around that to show who we are? Using the vans and the guys who are digging up the roads to communicate the brand. And first point of contact, critical. So how do we do more around that? So just some really practical, hands-on, nitty-gritty things that they could do differently. So just to quickly summarise, a bit of a whistle-stop tour of this client. It was a really consultative, adaptive process. From beginning to end, it's probably taken 18 months. It's hard work to get to this. And the time critical. So we've got some things to do tomorrow. What do we do next? So we're going to track progress against all of these things, see over time how these things are impacting customer satisfaction, how that's impacting revenue, and change if we need to. And also change the context. There's the old quote, if you don't like what people are saying about you, change the conversation. If you're being measured on the wrong things, so customer satisfaction including some elements that aren't relevant, lobby the legislator to change it. Be measured on things that actually customers really do care about rather than what you think they care about. So that's me, just a quick whistle-stop tour or case study. I hope we can discuss it some more, but in the meantime I'll hand over to Jenny. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. It's great to be here. It's actually my first AMEC conference, so it's nice to be here, though I'm very familiar with Madrid. I actually lived here for 8 years. So if you need any recommendations on bars and everything, let me know. It's a great town, so I can guarantee you'll have a great time here. I'm Jenny Chapman. I'm the managing director of our North American business at Gorkana. And Gorkana, as some of you might know, focuses on really bringing together and helping to establish relationships and connect media and journalists with the PR and communication community. And we do that in the services we offer about connecting folks to build those good relationships and then help them to measure the impact of building those good relationships. So our media intelligence contact database. But today I'm to share a case around what we do within the measurement and analysis and evaluation space. And I do ask, I won't be able to share these slides. In order to really bring to life to you the case, I'm sharing client data with you. So just please be sensitive to that as we go through the presentation and anything that you might share. Okay, got through that. That's me, not for distribution. So this is a case study about a global rebranding for eBay. And right there, so this is what their logo was. What? Am I catching up? It says here. Okay. There we go. And this is what the logo that they were relaunching. And you all know when anyone relaunches a logo, have you ever heard of it being like, I love it, it's the best thing? Right? So you're prepared. It's probably going to be a little bit negative, right? So they were prepared for that. And because of that, it was really important, and they were very smart about thinking about, let's do this as a two-phased approach. And so what we did is we created a measurement program that was holistic and allowed them to have consistent measurement across both of the phases, but allowed them to have that we could drive insights quickly so that we could go through and give them how was it working, give them insights. So when they went into phase 2, there were opportunities to recalculate and reposition if necessary and try new strategies. Obviously, this is a really high profile kind of event for any PR team. And so it's important to have something that's in place that can help establish how well do they perform in this kind of big company, change that's going to impact their corporate reputation. So basically what I'm going to take you through now is a little bit of the message. If you think about when you're doing PR, message is, right? That's one of the key things. That's how you're inspiring, how you're connecting with your audience. So understanding how that message flows, what was the life of that message and the life of the story is pretty important. Because then ultimately what we were really looking to do here was to look at that communication strategy and understand, was that message really reaching who it should be reaching? Was it resonating with the key targets? So the slide I'm going to take you through is actually a visualization. It was one slide when we presented it to the client, so quite busy. So we've broken it down for you a little bit. So this is kind of taking you through the life of the story. 7:00 a.m., the first tweet went live. Then there was the first reference to navigation bar. eBay goes live with its first blog that it goes live. The next web article, TechCrunch goes live, and then eBay link. What happens after that at 10 o'clock? CNET then article goes live. CNN Money article goes live at 10 o'clock as well. And then we have two things going on at 11. VentureBeat goes live, and then the Next Web. But it was the Next Web that where we saw, and again, as we looked through each of the different outlets, where there was the most prolific link, right? In terms of, it was the third most, 50 plus shared links to an article, 200 retweets overall. Then at 12 o'clock, TechCrunch goes. That again, huge technology blog, 150 plus links to an article on October 10th, 650 retweets overall. 2 a.m., small business trends. Again, this then was helping go, right, launched at 2 a.m., but that's what you were all looking at the first thing you got up the next day in the morning. So that also was the second largest link of shares. So what's the point of showing all of that is really about, as we looked at the data and the presentation earlier today, well, what's the link that you had between them? So I hope, did you catch our really nice little animation there? I want to make sure we didn't miss that little birdie. We took a lot of time to get that to work like that. Just want to emphasize that that was a nice slide that we saw, right? So there is a much more of a long tail, and again, long within PR terms, we're talking 4 days. But if you think about the editorial and the media coverage, right, it's a cliff, right? You have that blue spike if you look at the graph there, right? So goes with the mainstream media, spikes up, but it then drops very quickly. We were able to really map out for the client what they were looking for is tell me and help me understand the arc of the story and help me understand the interaction of mainstream with social. So by looking and what I took you through earlier, where they were able to see which of the social sites were providing that true amplification and helping to prolong the story and give more opportunity for those key messages to get across, right, and to penetrate. So some of the results that we were able to see from that was on phase 1, they had 5 key messages. And, as you look at the messages, they seem very kind of corporate, right? Evolved, new logo, rooted in proud heritage, modern global marketplace. There's a lot of different things that they're trying to get across, and they're not necessarily connected in the first 5. Our recommendation for phase 2 was that you should go to 3 messages, to fewer messages. And we did this based on data, and I'll show you that in a second. But they were refined and focused into these 3 messages. And they also, if you look at them now, they kind of support each other, right? So it's about enabling commerce so that you can be inspired to shop through a global mobile platform. So there's more of a linkage to that reinforce each other, the 3 messages. What did that result in? The ability to go from not delivering in any article, all 5 messages in phase 1, to delivering all 3 of the messages in 67% of the coverage that they had. So again, I think this is an example, Eve, of maybe, is it hugely strategic, very tactical, but was very, very impactful, right? Because at the end of the day, the strategy is about getting the message across. And our ability to do that in an effective way is really what's going to drive results. So this, again, met the targets of what the client was looking for. The client needed to show that, they were having an impact, but more importantly, allowed them to create a better strategy and to take learnings that now go forward. Who should they be targeting? What journalists? What blogs? Which ones are really going to help them amplify and get their message out there? So as you can see in phase 1, 5 messages, the highest was at 73%, some at as low as 21. Phase 2, they got better, so higher levels of the message being penetrated. And as I mentioned, all 3 messages, because they now came together and had a story and were connected, all 3 of those messages. So almost kind of a double amplification effect as a result of that. So I think I'm the shortest one today. So did I get mine to the 6 minutes? Thanks, everybody.
We are running so well to time, so I'm actually going to do a quick presentation as well on a workshop that they've loaded the wrong slides. So as you were, that's for this afternoon session. I was going to give you a very good presentation of the Paralympic Committee, which is a shame. So, look, what we might do, we'll change. I'll tell you the story. Don't need the slides. So it is a good story. Jenny was just talking about messaging. The key about messaging for the Paralympic Committee out of the London Games was it was all about ability, not disability for our athletes. And we had a number of different stakeholders. We had the government who funds the Australian Paralympic Committee. We had our major sponsors, but of course we also had the Australian audience, the Australian community. And for us, we've been working with the Paralympic Committee since the Athens Paralympic Games, and it's been a fantastic journey over 12 years to work with a client who doesn't want data. They actually want to know how they're going to get better, how they're going to give athletes these chance to compete on a huge stage. It's 2 weeks after the biggest show on earth, but it's still massive as an event. So if you think about when we came back from London, we actually could show that we had a 98% increase in media coverage from the Beijing Games. It was a fantastic result. We had millions of page views on on our site. We did research, which was to get more data in, and 40% of Australians were now aware of the Paralympics, aware of its timings, and aware of it as an athletic event. And importantly, we actually had 90% of the Australian community coming back and saying it was inspirational to them to actually watch these athletes in London. So we could have stopped there with the client. You know, we had fantastic data all around the place to actually say it was a good result. The government came back and funded us 14% higher than we'd got in the area. And that was higher than any other sports group. And it's probably showing with our cricket team at the moment in London. They might need a few more bucks. And then the final piece around it, our sponsors signed on, and they signed with higher times right through to Rio. So we had these data points which were fantastic. But actually, when we started to dig deeper and look for insights with the client, what we found out that we had a team of 15 media people in London who were writing press releases and getting that coverage out for to the traditional media. We had people writing blogs, and we had people doing all that sorts of environments as well. But the main insight that we started to show to the Paralympic was you had the wrong skills and the wrong people on the ground. The media releases created 3% of the coverage. The event creates the coverage for the rest of it. And what was actually happening was it was the athlete tweets that were actually making the story interesting, making it different. So for years, broadcasters and media companies have spent so much money getting that athlete on the playing field to give that comment just after they've won a medal. What happens now is they do the interview, they move on into the dressing room, pick up their mobile phone and start tweeting about what it was like, what it felt, what the emotion was like. And so for us, suddenly we had a whole lot of media officers standing around writing media releases that would come out in an hour's time, but the story was already out in the marketplace. And the largest piece of the insight that we could give them was you're actually spending all this time, and we missed so many conversations that were starting by third parties. So some of the most positive stories about ability were coming from people who we had never made contact with before. They had never followed the Paralympic movement before, and we were just leaving them out there without any conversation. We didn't have the resources to actually go and discuss and bring those people into the conversation and make them be part of the group that we were trying to proceed with. So for us, and with the Paralympic movement, for Rio and for Sochi coming up, they're going to change completely how the teams are employed. The skills will be far more social. We will be creating content, deep content, great photos from the player field that people can share on Instagram and Facebook. We had one video piece on a Paralympian called Matt Cowdery, who's an amazing swimmer. He swims about a second slower than the Olympic gold medals won in. With one arm, he swims and wins a gold medal in the Paralympics. So we did a news feed of Matt. It was posted through people's Facebook sites to 460,000 Facebook sites. So with free-to-air television, we get 225,000, 300,000 people watching. Through Facebook, we had a download of a video clip through the news feed of 460,000 people. So for Rio and Sochi, we're going to make those video contents. We're going to create content which is what you can't buy, what you're not going to see on a television station. We're going to show you in the tunnel before you walk out for a 100-metre race what it feels like. We're actually going to march out with the athletes into the opening ceremony and have that and put it onto our YouTube channel in as few minutes after it's happened so people can actually share it and then bring it around. So for us, it's those money but can't buy experiences, and the insights for the clients was it was a fantastic result, but you had all your resources in the wrong place. So there you go, without slides. Okay, so the panel is going to do a shuffle across this way. It's because half of you can't see them behind the walls there. Oh, yeah, fit in, yeah.
You're probably going to ask us, no, go back, go back.
Yeah. And, yeah, yeah. So I was going to ask, so we'll change gears now and it becomes your question time. And I think we've seen a lot of different case studies and we've seen some very, very good discussions around what is insight, what is data, what is impact as well, which Eve brought up in her conversation. I've got a question in store, but I'm just conscious we've now got about 20 minutes to, and it's your time. So has anybody got a question from the floor that they'd like to ask the panel? If you could state your name, your company when you're asking the question, and who you would like the question directed to or to the panel in general. Any questions? Marion. Microphone on the way.
Thank you very much for a very interesting group of presentations. I love the examples with it as well. I think one of the struggles that I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Marion McDonald from Ogilvy, Asia Pacific, Hong Kong. Well, I think one of the struggles that we have is actually defining an insight in such a way that you know you've really got it. So Eve, I appreciated that you tried to tackle that first. And it's more an observation, but I think we need to do a much better job of educating our clients on it as well, what is truly an insight versus a fact or an observation. I think you brought to life some nice examples, and maybe one suggestion coming out of this is to gather some of that and put it into our education training programs around teaching people in the industry and also our clients that we partner with on what is a better insight versus observation and facts, because I try to do a lot of it, and I see so many presentations that say, here are our top 3, 5, 10 insights I've seen. I'm like, my God, it's hard enough to get to one really good insight, and you're all smart, you're all focused on one insight from your case, but teams think they've got 3, 5, 10 of them. They're facts and they're observations. So I think there's a lot for us to do around defining an insight, as Eve did at the start there, to say it's more of an aha moment than it is a interesting kind of, yeah, facts. And particularly, I think, with clients who've been in the field a long time, it's hard for a PR practitioner or a measurement agency to come in and help them see an insight about their business, not knowing what they already know from being in the business for 10 years too.
Good point. Anyone like to add some comments? Might just grab the microphone and pass it along.
I couldn't agree. Is this on? No, we're good?
Is this-
I could not agree more. And in fact, I think that part of the discovery process, when you walk in with clients and you're deciding when a deliverable comes to an end, what marks the end, that getting to that insight should mark the end and only then. The one thing that I feel like I've learned over the years is that I know my market, and you can't tell me anything new. It is very prevalent, but it shouldn't stop us from saying what we think is new. It requires us to do a ton of homework and know the market as well. But I think that posing something, the biggest intimidation for my team is usually, well, they might already think that. And in fact, that when they actually pose it, not being afraid to test that the client's intelligence and expertise can really get you to the insights.
Anyone else?
Thanks. I think it's a great point, and it might seem facile, but I think as researchers, we have to deliver insight by collecting lots of different data points. I think you rarely get insight from one data point. It's a bit from here, a bit from there, triangulating it, or whatever word you want to use. And then you're starting to get towards insights. And when you kind of add context and time and some other things into the mix, you're getting that kind of so what moment. But on its own, it kind of it's a fact, as you said, rather than an insight, one data point, I think.
Mark, it's coming.
Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Janelle Dixon from MSL Group out of New York. And I would just like to chime into what you said, Eve, that yes, sometimes clients will say, I know everything, I've been in the business forever and a day. But the insight, as you put it, it should be an aha moment, but an aha moment that goes back to solving their business issues. So even though they may have been in the business for, 10 years or so, there's still a business challenge that they're trying to solve for. And so the insight or the aha should be able to inform them on how to resolve that issue. And also, it could mean not necessarily buying new research, but looking at the existing data differently to solve for that challenge.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. I think it's the combination of knowing your client's business and what their objectives are, and then knowing the data that you've got at hand and how you can use that data to answer those questions, which you wouldn't see it just from a normal position or you know, it's that data that makes us different, that solves that business problem. Yeah. Next question. I'll ask a quick one then. Just talking about big, you know, we had big data this morning, and then we're just talking about the different types of data that's coming into our business to actually give these aha moments, to give these insights. In your experience in the recent past, what are the new data points that are coming into your research, into your analysis, that are actually providing those results? Anybody?
Right, well, within Kantar, clearly, we've got a lot of different data sets available within the shop. And I think, you know, as I mentioned in the short presentation, just the consumer-centric data. And whether that is, you know, I think any avenue of communication, but especially in, you know, now social media, is not just an awareness and an ability to size an audience, but really drill into it and understand what makes it tick. And then how online behaviors migrate to offline actions, you know, is all becoming, I think, you know, a key part of what at least we are trying to achieve within Kantar. So, yeah, the interaction between online, offline, and then the consumer-centric data. So much of what we have at the moment. Also for social or online, I would describe as site-centric. It's quant, whereas we really need to drill into it and understand the audiences more, their behaviours and their actions.
In the case that I talked about, obviously we were integrating social with traditional media and looking how those were interacting. And I think one of the differences that in some of the big data presentations, you have to look at it both ways. Sometimes more data is good, but sometimes it's not. Because as I was thinking through this myself, I said, well, if I'd had the whole fire hose, if we had just been looking at everything, would that confuse it or make it clearer? And I think in the case that we had, it was really about deciding beforehand what we know, what the blogs, which are the important ones are, et cetera. So really measuring what matters is I think critical, even can be in the social space, so that you're not getting too much in that might actually have you making decisions based on a very it might seem big, but it's so each one is so separate that they don't have an actual amplification effect. So I think that's kind of the other way of looking at big data. When is it bringing in value to make better decisions, and when can it sometimes actually cloud things? So having a careful balance there between that and measuring what matters, and thinking of it not just measuring what matters when it comes to traditional media, but in social as well.
Yeah.
I think, just as a point for me, I think the lady there made a really good, was it Janelle? Made a really good point, which is, there's a recession on. If the client's already got data, even if it's not perfect, some data is better than no data at all. So we can't be precious as researchers about always selling in new data points. Let's use what they've already got and integrate it. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Matt, are you at a trust point with many of your clients where you have a good sharing of data at this point? I mean, because it's probably one of the big challenges for the business now.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I wouldn't say many. You've got to
We're
work
the same, so it's okay.
Yeah, you've got to work with people for a long time, and clients move on. So, to have an established relationship over a period of years is a tricky thing to get to.
Yep.
But when you've got that trust, yeah, absolutely. It's the holy grail, I think, for research, isn't it? Because then you start to say, well, there's a bit over there, and we can bring it in.
I would say that what we're experiencing is that there's a lot more breaking down of silos between organizations. It behooves us to go out and to find those connections. What I find often is that clients might not be aware of what they have internally and what they can get. And so as practitioners, we can actually suggest that, well, your XY org might have this kind of data that we could use, and let me pursue. Put me in contact with, who might I pursue? We go down a lot of trails to find the right people, but when we get there, the doors are open. Analytics geeks are happy to work with other analytics geeks. This is the good thing. So when they meet somebody that speaks their language, they're actually in love. So I find it's definitely growing in ability to get to more data than just what you control and what you own.
Let's see.
Asim Sood from Impact Research and Measurement. I have a two-part question. First of all, thanks. The examples that you all shared were very interesting. I noticed that all these examples, the approach that you were following was a very consultative approach, and you were involved not just in media measurement activity for the client, but you were somehow involved in other functions as well. My question to you is, the first one is that with what percentage of your entire client set are you able to have that kind of a relationship? So what is that percentage number? My second question is, are there instances wherein in delivering regular media measurement services in a non-consultative way, are you able to showcase insight delivery to client? Can I send an insight via a report?
Asim, could you say the first one again? I couldn't quite.
What percentage of your total client base are you able to achieve this consultative interaction wherein you are involved not just in your domain, but other associated domains as well? Even like, for example, the example that John gave, I get a feeling that in a way it was like running the PR campaign for the event. So that's more than media measurement, right? Which is, again, desired, but with what percentage of your clients are you able to achieve that? Just that number. What would that number be?
I will try to answer some of it. Retriever, I can only speak for our company, but we are specialized in media monitoring and media analysis, so we don't provide PR consulting. And I know that other providers do that, but we are very strict in just showing the client the picture using different kind of data, but the importance for us is to show the client the picture so that they can decide on what to do after that. So when we, in my case, when we showed DNB how much lower impact the case had than they anticipated, it was their decision to start working more or take the general approach or the ordinary approach.
I think it all goes to what a client buys. So when a client is coming in and wants, has a lower budget and a measurement is kind of, I wouldn't say ticking a box, but they don't feel that they have enough activity, the role of spend that they have there is lower, they're going to go for these more, services that are like a standard automated dashboards, things that are updated in a portal. That's more difficult. Because even if that data has insight, we might not know it because it's automated, they look at it quarterly, and we don't know to what extent afterwards it's getting, while we'll have check-ins with the client, you're never gonna know when you're going with an automated solution. With our custom clients, it's 100% that it's that kind of consultative engagement. That's why they hire us, they want that consultative, and they're looking for someone who knows PR, knows the industry, and can measure the management with providing the insight and the direction. So it really goes to the clients that come to us for that custom engagement. It's always going to be a consultative. It's part of the media brief. It's part of, we have to know their business objectives in order to build the program and create exactly the report that they need. Then there's a client that says, I just, can I get the basics? And it's not customized, and it's updated, and it's a much more automated kind of process. So I think that's the big differentiation.
I'd agree, and let's be honest. If you're working with the CEO, and I know it's a relatively rare occurrence, but if you are, they're the guys or girls who write the checks, and they're going to be saying to the media relations manager or the comms director or the marketing director, I want to work with these guys, because they've got their finger on the pulse of all the things we do across our company, and it becomes strategic then, rather than buy a bit from here and a bit from there and a bit from there. And I know it's hard to do, but that's the holy grail.
All right, thank you.
Did we answer it all, Nassim? Second part, were you talking more about?
So, do you have any other examples wherein just using data or using non-consultative approach you were able to do? I don't want to know the example right now, but do you have examples? Do you think there are examples? Maybe you can connect me later.
Yeah, maybe in a coffee break or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are definitely examples. I think it's the what data you use. But for example, so we do a lot of call to action analysis of who's recommending what, and that can often, that's part of something that we will deliver as part of our impact analysis, and you'll get insights from that. So is that what is that answering your last question? As an example.
Yeah, for sure. We've probably got 2 questions left, and Nick's got the microphone. So, who has the microphone rules? So,
thanks, Don. Very good session this morning, simply because it is concentrating on the fact that only 1 or 2 real insights can deliver real value to the client, which is where you make the money. Specific question for Philip and for Matt, if I may. Phil, on your Downton Abbey audience, was that a hypothesis which you were testing and found those results, or had you researched many potential audiences and found that Downton Abbey was the winner? And for Matt, on your thesis, again, very good work indeed about planning how to deploy the spend. Have you had any test results yet to actually prove that you're right?
yeah, exactly.
But he has the microphone. Oh, hang on. Thanks, Dick. Obviously, there was the whole consumer insights arm within the client available to establish what the target market was, and actually the product was actually created to meet a target market, because there was a certain level at which sales of the flagship product were great, and then there was the big long tail off. So how did they access those? So really it was, we create a product and we've already preordained where we're going to target it. The question was, how do we reach them when we've spent several years defining the product a different way, explicitly away from that audience? So that's where the segmentation really came into its own, and understanding what the profile was going to be. And then, so what style of communication and what communication channels would be the best way to reach them. And the final slide with the GRPs was outcome, post campaign.
Thanks, Nick. I've had time to think now. I think it was tricky, that example, because we were testing a negative in the way, because nobody knew them. We were testing scenarios to say, if people did know them better because they were communicating better, what impact would that have on customer satisfaction? So we're using scenario testing and Key Driver and some of those tools to kind of get towards that. But the job now is to test, as people do find out more about them, how does that impact satisfaction? As they get more media profile, what's that doing to their reputation? So we were starting from kind of point zero, really, and now the challenge is to measure that. Yeah.
So you've got the initial information which suggests not to use big online. You could then do some A/B testing to find out if you're right.
Sorry, big A/B. Oh, I see. Yeah, and absolutely, and part of it was, the elderly population in London will have very different perceptions of these things to somebody in a flat share in the rural areas. So segmenting it is absolutely critical, if that's your point.
Cool. Yeah.
This is actually speaking more to the question that Asim asked, but I have a perception that there's a lot of clients we work with who are either intimidated or perhaps bored with data. get it from all different directions, in all different types, whether it be like monthly financial data for their budget, or whether it be the media monitoring data that their agencies are pushing towards them to show how their communications has been successful. So to your point, Asim, I think, and I would ask the panel if they would agree with this, is that where those insights really play a role? Because actually that exec isn't going to spend a lot of time remembering that it was 55% and not 54%, which it was last month, or are they going to remember actually what we saw really made a difference this month was this particular campaign because it had this impact on this audience. And this, sorry, I'm Colin Wheeler from Wagon Redstrom, so Eve is a colleague. So the point Eve was making about an insight being related to impact, I think it's actually, that's what sticks in people's minds, and that's been my experience as a client and as an agency person. So I'll just ask, is that something that you would share?
It's a very good point, and I think it goes back to the earlier point about the quality of insight is really determined by the quality of the objectives. And if people are complaining of data overload, it's really because they are involving themselves in stuff that is not tied to an objective. Because if you are in business with a specific objective, you cannot wait to get that report. Because that is going, the context is so meaningful for you. If you are a brand owner and you have a PR agency that is insisting on, shoveling a whole bunch of stuff to you every day, you could just tell them to stop, because, that's not the objective. So tie it to the objective, and then it has meaning.
Jenny? Yeah.
I would just totally agree with that. We spend so much time in that briefing up front with the client and getting to that and what is their business objective, and without that, then it fails because it isn't consultative. You don't meet the expectation. So I would just really reiterate, if you don't spend that time up front, and we actually make sure we get all the key stakeholders. So if it's a global program, you've got London and Asia and US on the phone, all of the stakeholders going through what are their objectives, how are they going to be measured, how are they aligned, how are our KPIs aligned with the business objectives, will they be able to tell the story or not, does everyone agree with it? So we spend a lot of that time up front, and if you don't, and whenever it doesn't happen that way, it's always going to be an issue farther down the line.
I would add, too, from my point of view, that you do it up front, but you do it when the report's going out the door as well. If you know there's not an insight in that report, or you're going to have to go and present that report, to me, when times get tough and you haven't had those insights and you've only had a benchmark in effect, that's what gets cut. Or, as Phil says, they've got to want that report coming in the door because it's going to give them what they're going to do in the next campaign or what's going to happen next. So to me, I think it's, as you're looking at it before it goes out the door, you've got to know what those insights are as well. Eve's going to go, and then we're on time.
So I would just say that the scorecard effect with measurement of let's check the box that we got measurement is very prevalent. I mean, let's be realistic. But the opportunity that we have is to take the order and then do what we want to do with the data. We find it interesting. We should be looking at it, finding out what's interesting to us, and it will be interesting to them even if they didn't ask for it in the first place. So we are able to just report on a scorecard, but we can then take it an extra mile and show them something that we think that they will find valuable.
I don't need it.
I'll hold it.
Okay, so we're on time, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks for the panel for fantastic. So that one's real, so that's nice that you can take that one with him. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for your involvement. It's been a really, I enjoyed it a lot. I learned a lot from what you all contributed, so thanks very much. Lunch is on the roof. There are 2 lifts that go from this floor to the 7th floor. There's 2 lifts that go from the ground floor to the 6th floor, and you can walk up. This is all my notes from Barry. There are people who direct you the right way. There will be sponsors up there on the rooftop who will have a little stall for their products. Look, I've come to AMEC conferences. I have learned from going and talking to those guys, so they make it happen for us. They allow Barry to put on the little things like the lunches and the dinners that we have. So give them some time. They'll appreciate it, and I'm sure you'll get something out of it as well. So thanks very much.